Hi, you guys. Ooh, okay. I'm Holly, alcoholic. My sobriety date is September 28, 1996. I have a home group. My home group's the West Connect group in Jacksonville, Florida. We meet Monday nights, 7 p.m. We are a hybrid meeting, and we're going to stay that way. So if you would like to come to my home group from the comfort of your living room, hit me up later. I'd be happy to give you those codes. And of course, if you're ever in Jacksonville, Florida, please hit me up. We'll meet for coffee, go to my home group because that's the way we do it in Jacksonville. I do have a sponsor. My sponsor is the amazing Miss Polly P. Of course, she has a sponsor and she has a sponsor and I sponsor women and they sponsor women. So that puts me smack dab in the middle of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is right where I need to be. And I'm super excited to be here today. Thank you, really. Thank you, Glenn, for inviting me today. I feel a little discombobulated. I have a son and a fiance and two huge hounds living with me right now. They're building a home and it's not ready and their lease was up. So I said, come on. Well, then they're both working from home. So I have my son in one of my big rooms and he's all set up with his office. And then my daughter-in-law to be is out in my big music room and she's got her office set up. And I said, well, I have to talk during the day today. What am I going to do? And they both looked at me and said, well, we don't know because we're working. So I am in a little corner of my bedroom. And I'm all set up and I'm like, okay, this is weird. So if I'm a little bit distracted, it's because I've never been on Zoom in my bedroom, but hopefully the light's okay. I don't know what, yeah, whatever. We're just going to roll with it. So thank you for that. I figure that it'll keep me humble because I have no idea what I'm doing in here. I'm really, really, really happy to have the opportunity to have my son and my daughter-in-law here. You know, I say that like it's just a thing, you know, like I'm a mom and the kids just come home and stay with you. But you know what? That's like a serious gift. You know, I was thinking about my life last night. I was kind of reflecting. I was traveling all weekend. I was up in Champaign, Illinois with some friends at a thing. And I got home. I stayed extra over and with girlfriends and had fun in Chicago. And I got home last night and I was doing my 11-step reflection and kind of talking to God. And I thought, you know, you have to pinch yourself sometimes. Like, how did this happen? How did I get here? You know, and it's not that, you know, I'm not rich. I'm not famous, certainly not getting any younger or beautiful. But, you know, I'm happy, joyous, and free. And that in my book, it says that's what God wants me to be. He wants me to be happy, joyous, and free. So I'm going to tell you about happy, joyous, and free first. And then I'll kind of tell you how I got here. You know, that's the more boring part. So happy, joyous, and free. When I first read that in the big book, I thought, what's that all about? And it seems redundant. That was actually my thought. So happy. First, I have to tell you, I'm a pretty happy person today. Pretty happy most days. And I'd like to say that my happiness comes because I line my will up with God's. But really happy is when I get my way. Seriously, happy is when things are going the way I want them to go. Now, I do start my day every morning with the 11 step. And I plan my day out and then I give it to God and I ask where can I be of use? So maybe I'm trying to line my will up with God's a little more today than I used to. So it seems like things go a little smoother. But that instantly, you know, in the moment, that's where my happiness comes from. So then what's joy all about? Happy, joyous, and free. And I want to tell you about joy because I believe joy is the gift of this program. I need joy to carry me through the things that happen in life. And for a long time in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, for many years, I had this program all backwards. You know, I thought the end game here was to become a real girl, and I'll explain to you how I was once Pinocchio. And so I really thought that you were going to teach me how to be nice. You were going to teach me how to be a good wife and a good mother and a good sister and a good daughter and a good employee. Well, you'd have to teach me how to work first. But, you know, you were going to teach me how to do those things. And then when I learned how to do those things, I'd be a real girl. And if I was a real girl, then people would love me. And if people loved me, I'd be okay. And that's what I thought, and I had it all wrong. And what I discovered in Alcoholics Anonymous, quite by accident, really, I was sitting in a meeting one day, and maybe a year sober, and the chairperson had introduced a topic, and so I was pontificating in my head what I was going to share on said topic. So I was thinking about all that and coming up with some really great words. And I wasn't going to volunteer because no, you need to call on me. So of course I was wiggling around in my chair a little bit. So maybe the chairperson would notice me and call on me. And then about 2 rows in front of me, some girl raised her hand. Of course she did. And I didn't know her from Adam. I'd never seen her before in my life. And she started sharing on the topic presented by said chairperson. And she started crying and sharing some experience she had that I didn't have and I didn't relate to. And all of a sudden, a tear rolled down my cheek. I was listening to her, and I thought, oh, bless her little heart, because I'm in the South. And I thought, I wonder what her name was, because, I was thinking about myself when she introduced herself. And I thought maybe I should talk to her after the meeting, introduce myself. And for just a moment, don't get exciting. Trust me, it was quick, it was short, it was fleeting, but just for a moment, I loved her. I cared about her. I didn't know her. I didn't share her experience, but I felt her. And in that moment, when I felt her, I felt joy. It was amazing. And it hit me. OMG. That's what this is about. What? The big book, I don't know about yours, but my big book, like every other page, says work with others, work with others. I don't know what's up with Bill. Work with others. That's a 4-letter word that did not excite me when I first read the big book. Seriously, work with others, work with others, work with others. Give back what was so freely given to me. Ew. Like, I'm not excited about that. Who wants to do that? That's like the penance step, right? Have you read step 12? Not real exciting. And that's really what I thought until that moment. And in that moment, when I loved that girl just for a second, I got it. I understood what you guys have been trying to teach me all along. Work with others. It means love others. Love others. And when I love others, I feel joy. It's incredible. Amazing. And I love a lot of people today. So I have a lot of joy. So what's this whole free thing then, right? Happy, joyous, and free. Well, I thought free was, freedom from the bondage of alcohol. No, that's a promise in step 10. So what are we talking about then? And then it hit me. You see, me loving you brings me joy. Has nothing to do with you loving me. And the fact of the matter is, you have no say-so in that. There is nothing you can do to stop me from loving you, which is certainly exampled by me loving a woman I didn't know at all in that meeting just by listening to her. There's absolutely nothing anyone can do to stop me from loving them. My mama, nothing she can do to stop me from loving her. Daddy number 1, daddy number 2, daddy number 3, daddy number 4. Nope, nothing they can do to stop me from loving them. My ex-husband, there's nothing he can do to stop me from loving him. But there's a lot I can do right here to stop me from loving them. But God, in his infinite wisdom, gave Bill Wilson to give to Holly steps 10 and 11. What? And those steps are designed to keep me out of the way. Who knew? So as long as I am willing to look at me, uncover my fears and my self-centeredness, oh my lions and tigers and bears, as long as I'm willing to uncover those things, give them to God, make amends where necessary, in case I didn't practice that paragraph in step 10 that says shut up. It begins with now we learn to practice self-restraint. Yeah, that's the shut up paragraph. So if I forget to practice that or I don't catch myself in time and take a look at myself, well, then I make amends promptly and then I go help another alcoholic. The instructions are all right there. Oh my God. So if all I have to do on a daily basis is keep me out of the way, and as long as I do that, bring God into the picture, and I get to love you as much as I want, I get as much joy as I can possibly stand. And I'm free. I am completely and totally free because none of that is subject to anything you do. And that's amazing. What a gift I've been given. And I need joy. I need all the joy I can muster because life is in fact in session. Little things come to pass in my life. Things like my firstborn daughter, my baby girl, November of 2016, out having a few drinks at the Omni, decided she's going to snort a little social heroin. Didn't know that was a thing. Killed her instantly. A year and a half ago, my middle grandson passed away 3 weeks after his 18th birthday from a quick onset of cancer. He was a really good kid, and it took him out really fast. And I have one sibling, a baby sister 4 years younger than I, and we just buried her in January. She lost her battle with stage 4 breast cancer. And then to top it all off, and I know they're all in heaven laughing when I say this, I had to put my dog down in June. I had him for 13 years. Life's in session. Things are hard. There are days I'm not so happy. But you know what? I never have to lose my joy. Not for one moment. Because the big book says, if you don't have enough money, work with others. If you don't have a job, work with others. If your spouse is leaving you, work with others. If they came back, work with others. If you're not getting any, work with others. If you're getting too much, well, enjoy that while it lasts because eventually you'll be working with others. If your daughter dies, work with others. If your grandson dies, work with others. If your sister dies, work with others. If you have to put your dog down, work with others. The instructions are in the book. And you know why it says that? Because every time I do, I'm filled with joy, and joy carries me through every time. Every time. It's amazing, this gift I've been given. And it allows me the freedom to navigate life happy, joyous, and free. Unbelievable, but it wasn't always like that. Now, I'm a Chuck C fan. Got to start right out the gate with that. If you don't know who Chuck C is, just a drunk guy in Alcoholics Anonymous. I mean, we don't have a hierarchy here or anything like that. He was pretty amazing drunk guy, died in 1984, but he used to give a lot of talks, you know, like people do, and they recorded them like people do, and they took one of his talks and they put it down on paper, word for word, and we'll call that a book. And that book's a new pair of glasses. Sits right over there on my nightstand with a highlighter. I've been reading it for a very long time. And the only reason I read it is because Chuck talks about himself and I relate. One alcoholic talking to another. Chuck says I have one problem, one, and it encompasses all of my problems, and that is a conscious separation from God and mankind. That's how my disease shows up. And he says there's just one solution, one, and it fixes everything. And that's a conscious connection to God and mankind. Well, I've already told you about my conscious connection. So let me tell you about my conscious separation. I don't think that Chuck chose those words randomly. I think God was divine in that talk that night. He didn't just say we're a little unique or, you know, we march to the beat of a different drummer. No, conscious separation from God and mankind. And I think that's the line in the sand that we cross to become alcoholic. I think I can skip along, dip-de-doo, just enjoying my little self, maybe having a drink now and then, maybe being kind of a normal person. I hear about people like that. And then one day they cross a line. They cross a line they can't get back over. And I believe it's the moment that we become aware of our separation. Because for me, when I became aware of my separation, that's the day I stepped into hell. I went from wanting a drink to needing a drink. And for me, that happened when I was 4 years old. Now, the first 4 years of my life were amazing. Now, I'm one of those people that's blessed, I think, with a memory back to 6 months old. So I'm very, very clear memory of my life. I also had very long blackouts, you know, like the kind you wake up living in another state with a guy you don't remember meeting. You know, those kind of blackouts. Maybe it's just me. But anyway, very clear memory. So first 4 years of my life, I'm raised in North Chicago, little bitty town called Libertyville, Illinois. My daddy is a prominent surgeon in the community. My mom is a typical alcoholic housewife. Yes, she drinks martinis, she cries, and she sleeps. Now, I can say that about my mama because she says that about herself. She's been sober 40 years. But back then, she was not sober, so she was invisible. My mother really did not participate in my childhood. She was kind of a shadow in my life. We had a housekeeper and a cook, which I helped manage, and my daddy, large and in charge, well-known in the community. As I said, prominent surgeon in a small town. And also, did I mention, a mainline amphetamine addict. Now, if you don't know what that means, it means he got the really good stuff that wakes you up, and he shot himself up with it, and then, woo, things got exciting in my house. Now, my daddy believed that the G-men were out to get him, and if you were born, oh, I don't know, in the 80s and beyond. I'll give you a definition. The G-men, that's the government men. That's the men that have initials, you know, like CIA or FBI or NSA or who knows what, the men in black. My daddy believed they were watching him, that they were observing him, and that they were going to come and take him away at some point. And so my job in the household was to protect him from said G-men. So when I was 3 years old, my training began. He taught me how to listen in the wall for bugs. He taught me how to sweep electronics for listening devices. One day he sat me on his lap in the Corvette, floored it, let go of the wheel and said, "You're driving today. You need to learn how to drive in case you ever need to get me away from the G-men." And I screamed and he screamed, different reasons, but I did learn how to drive a Corvette that day. And yes, I do like fast cars. Can't help myself. When I was 4 years old, my gun training began. My daddy said I not only needed to know how to shoot one, I needed to know how to shoot one well in case I needed to protect him from said G-men. Now, a lot of neighborhood animals disappeared during my training, but I do not kill animals today, just saying. So hello. First 4 years of my life, I'm running around with this amazing man driving a Corvette and shooting guns. It was awesome. And then I went to kindergarten. Now, my family sent me to kindergarten when I was 4 years old because I was already reading small novels and I was doing math because I had to pay the staff. So they thought, may as well send her off to school. So I walked into kindergarten at 4 years old and I walked into little kid heaven. Do you remember kindergarten? Oh, it's amazing. There's colors and palettes for drawing and little tables and little chairs. And I stood in the doorway of that kindergarten room and I was amazed. But there was a problem. The room was filled with other little 4 and 5-year-olds. They were all running around, interacting and playing and holding hands and laughing and having a marvelous time. And I stood in that doorway and I watched those children play and I had absolutely no idea what to do. None. Now, if I didn't care, I wouldn't be your speaker today. But as I watched those children play, I wanted to play too. I wanted to know what it is they seem to know so easily. And it was in that moment that I knew there was something really wrong with Holly. It was in that moment that I became consciously aware of my separation. I needed a drink badly that day. I had to wait a few months. When I was 5, my parents entertained frequently. They had cocktail parties. I hated it when they entertained. They treated me weird when other adults were around. This particular party, I'm 5 years old now. My daddy says, "You're 5. You can start serving drinks to our guests." I said, okay. Walked over to the bar, grabbed a highball glass, filled it with vodka, a little bit of lemon. We'll call that a martini. My mom did. And I head across the room to bring that to my mother, and I didn't make it. No, I did what I think all good little 5-year-old alcoholics do. I drank it. I was having a bad day. You know, they were having this party. No one was talking to me. I was feeling very put out. Kindergarten was very stressful. And I drank that glass of vodka. And I want to tell you, by the time I crossed the room and I finished that glass of vodka, the magic happened for me instantly. And I'm not one of those people. I didn't get prettier. I didn't get taller. I didn't get smarter. That's not what alcohol did for me. What alcohol did for me is it connected me to you. As soon as that alcohol went to work in my body, I fell in love with everyone in the room and they all fell in love with me. See, I have a conscious separation. I've got to get connected and there's only one way. Alcohol. Alcohol. It connects me instantly. And then I can function in the world that I'm suddenly a part of. At the end of that night, I said, whatever that stuff is, I'm drinking it as much as often as I can. And I did. I was an adult in this household. I could pour a glass of vodka anytime I wanted to. So I became a weekly drinker at the age of 5. By 11, I was a daily drinker. And by 13, I was hitchhiking around the United States. My mom divorced that dad. Probably a no-brainer. She remarried when I was 13 to a naval officer who liked to beat me up for discipline. You know, he wanted to know stupid things like, where are you going? Which I quite frankly thought was none of his business. I explained to him that I've been running this household since I was 2 years old, didn't need his help. If he wanted to entertain my mother, that was fine with me, but otherwise leave me alone. He didn't like that too much. And so he would just beat me up and I'd grab a bottle and run out the door and go get drunk, spend the night at a friend's. Well, see, when I drink, I do not drink and cry and sleep. No, I'm a little high energy. I don't know if that comes through Zoom at all, but I was definitely way high energy when I was younger. And so what I did was travel. See, I was a Michener fan. By the 13, I'd read most of Michener's novels. And my favorite was The Drifters, which is about college students from all around the world. And they meet in Europe and they hitchhike around Europe together. I wanted to do that. So my stepdad gets an assignment out on the East Coast in Newport Beach, or no, Newport Beach, that's California, Newport, Rhode Island. And we end up out there, and I decide I want to see Boston, and I want to see Maine, the lobster and all, and I want to see the covered bridges of Vermont and New Hampshire. So when I had a few drinks, off I'd go. I'd stick out my little thumb and hitchhike. Now, when I was 13, I was not a girl that looked 21. No, that's not me. I looked 8. I've always kind of been built like a young boy. The only curves I have today are from a very good plastic surgeon in Jacksonville, Florida. But back then I looked very, very young. So I'd be walking down the sidewalk, and police would always pull over and say, "Are you lost, little girl?" Like whatever. So hitchhiking around, they always caught me and brought me home. When I was 14, we ended up with my stepdad's final station in the Navy, which was New Orleans, Louisiana. We arrived in December of 1971, halfway through my freshman year of high school. So you don't get confused in the math. I actually have a birthday coming up that I'd rather not discuss. On Friday, I'll be 64 this week. So, yay, she made it. She's still alive. So we arrived during Christmas break of my high school, my freshman year. And in January, I got dropped off at the high school and I got beat up my first day. 3 black girls jumped me, beat me to a pulp because I asked for directions from a black boy in school that day. And apparently they were desegregating schools in the South then, and it wasn't going well. And I didn't know. I had no idea why I got beat up that day. Now, had I known, I would have still talked to that young man. I don't have that kind of upbringing or those kind of thoughts, but at least I would have known why I took a beating, but I did not know. So I didn't want to go back to that school. I didn't want to get beat up because, I know there's something wrong with me. And now I think it's written on my face and they can tell. And that's why they're beating me up. So instead of going to school the next day, I jump a ferry. That's a boat. It's 3 blocks from my school. And it takes you across the Mississippi River Bridge and it drops you at the foot of Canal Street, which is the opening to the French Quarter. So in January of 1972, I started spending my days in the French Quarter of New Orleans. There was a lot going on in the French Quarter of New Orleans and a lot in 1972, all of which I partook. Now, I am a real alcoholic, if you haven't figured that out. I obsess over alcohol until it's in my possession. I get the sense of ease and comfort when that bottle's in my purse. But once I put that alcohol into my body, the phenomenon of craving occurs. And I don't know if I'm going to have 2, which is never, or if I'm going to have a whole lot and wake up in LA with 3 toothless men. I mean, you just don't know what's going to happen when I start to drink. So I have the obsession, and then once injected into my body, the phenomenon of craving. That is what makes me a real alcoholic. Not guns, not Corvettes, and not hitchhiking around the United States. So I just want to be clear. So I'm a real alcoholic, but in 1972, they had a lot of condiments out there that they like to give you to go along with your main course. And I was happy to oblige. And those condiments had things like 714 stamped on them, or they came in white powder form. And what those condiments did for me was they let me drink longer and travel further. So now I am waking up in LA or Galveston, partied on a freight car one time and came to in Iowa. Iowa. It's not a destination. If you're from Iowa, I'm sorry. Anyway, I started getting brought home from farther and farther away, and my parents decided there might be something wrong with me because I'm 14 years old and I'm hitchhiking around the United States. And so they took me to a psychiatrist who decided I needed a 3-day evaluation in the mental institution for which he was the director. So my parents dropped me off at DePaul's mental institution for said 3-day evaluation. Lovely facility, beautifully landscaped on the outside. One flew over the cuckoo's nest on the inside. They shackled you with leather straps and tied you to cots at night. And my roommate broke a ketchup bottle and slit her throat and bled out and died at my feet. Kind of looked like a fish. It was a little weird place for people were crazy in there. So they dropped me off for 3 days and they promptly let me out a year and a day later. And the only reason they let me out is the insurance expired. On the day they let me out, I was 15 years old. I sat on the couch while my psychiatrist had the exit talk with my parents, my mom and my stepdad. And this is what he said. He said, "Mr. and Mrs. Brandel, it's unfortunate that we have to let Holly go today, but as you know, the insurance, blah, 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 blah. And then he said, in preparation for Holly's homecoming, you need to make funeral arrangements because Holly is not going to survive. You see, Holly is terminally insane. She's a sociopath. She's either going to place herself in a position where she's killed or she's going to self-implode with her lifestyle. And my mom's crying, and my stepdad's, I told you, Carol, I told you, Carol. And I'm on the couch. I'm 15. This man has degrees all over the wall. I finally know what's wrong with me. I'm terminally insane. I'm a sociopath, and I'm going to die. And then they let me out. Well, I'm a little bit of an optimist, so I thought, well, let's just make the best of it. So I made Steppenwolf's Born to Be Wild my theme song, and off I went. And for the next 8 years, I hitchhiked around the United States. I ran with very, very dangerous people doing very, very dangerous things. It was very much incomprehensible demoralization. I was in a blackout. Most of my age 16 and 17, I don't remember much of it at all. The things I do remember, well, I share them one-on-one with other women, and that's about it. Yeah, it just wasn't, it was not pretty in those years. It was not glamorous. Sometimes exciting, but not in a way you want to be excited. When I was 18, I was kind of blowing through New Orleans one time looking for a guy I'd been dating. We'll use that term loosely. And he was not around, but his best friend was driving down the street and saw me, pulled over and said, hey, you want to go party? And I said, sure. Jumped in the car with Tim. We went and bought some tequila. Tequila, I'm going to warn you against tequila. We drank the tequila and I woke up married. Whoops. So I married the guy I was dating's best friend. That went over well. So I'm married to Tim, and his dad comes in the room because, of course, he lived at home. And he says, well, if you're married, son, I'll get you a job down at the yard. He was a big muckety-muck at Avondale shipyard, and he got him a white-collar job making a lot of money. So we thought, well, we'll stay married for the money. And so we did. I was 18. He was 20. We drank, partied together. He hit me. I hit him. We slept with each other's friends and bailed each other out of jail. You know, romance in the 70s. 1977, I decided to go to the university. Why not? I'd gotten a GED at a foster home. I got put in one time. May as well get an education since my husband makes enough money to support us. So off I went. 1978, I'm assigned a thesis. The thesis I was assigned was the effects of alcohol and drugs on pregnancy and breastfeeding. Now, I don't know why I was assigned that thesis. It wasn't a thing back then, but there you have it. I start researching for that thesis, and at the same time, I find I'm pregnant for my first child, my baby girl. So I didn't touch anything until I weaned her. When I weaned her from breastfeeding, I was off to the races. And when she was a little over a year old, I went out for mixer one night, and I disappeared for 9 months. I don't remember it. I went into a blackout, and off I went. I travel frequently in blackouts, and I went all around the United States, up the East Coast. My mom now has divorced the Navy guy, remarried an architect, and has moved to Houston, Texas. So my mama finds me in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, brings me back to New Orleans, and gets me an apartment and says, please stay put. Your husband and your daughter need you. I didn't care so much about the husband, but my daughter, oh my God. I wanted to be a good mom so bad. I love my daughter more than anything. It's very difficult to be a good mom when you wake up in other states. But I stayed put. I didn't go anywhere. I drank in bars every night. I mean, hello, it's New Orleans. February 2nd, 1981, I was drinking in a bar in Fat City, New Orleans. Guy asked me if I wanted to leave that bar and go get a condiment of some sort, and I said, sure, and I left with him. And I ended up in a bad situation. Now, I've been in a lot of bad situations in my day, but this one was a little more brutal than most. I ended up out on a dock, and he was beating me and various things. And at one point, I made eye contact with the guy, and I said, please kill me, because I was done. And it freaked him out. He ran off and he left me. I passed out for a couple of hours, came to, found my clothes, put myself together, hitchhiked home. God knows who gave me a ride. I walked in my door at 5 a.m. I called my mom right away and said, Mom, I was mugged last night because, you know, what are you going to say, right? I'd really like to come to Houston and spend some time with you. Member, architect, nice house, pool. She says, get to the airport, there'll be a ticket. And I went to the airport just a couple of hours later, and I flew to Houston, Texas. And the miracle happened for me when I got off the plane. I was beaten to a pulp. My eye was closed. This one was purple. My nose was split, lips busted, ribs broken, and hard time walking, if you know what I mean. And my mama was 3 days sober in Alcoholics Anonymous. She said to me the words that saved my life. She said, it would mean so much to me if you would come to a meeting with me to support me. And she meant it. It was all about her. Thank God. Because then I went. February 3rd, 1981, I walked into a meeting that was in a little smoke-filled trailer, sat in the parking lot of an Episcopal church in Kingwood, Texas, which is just north of Houston. And I walked into that meeting paying attention because this is Mom's gig. This is not my gig. I want to know what she's got herself into. About halfway through that meeting, a little lady started talking about being terminally insane. She said she put alcohol in her body and a crazy woman took over and took her places she did not want to go, doing things she did not want to do, certainly with people she didn't want to do it with. And she said she thought she was going to die that way. And then she found out she was not terminally insane. What? She found out she has a disease, and that disease is alcoholism. And she said if you have that disease, there's a reprieve, because she's in Texas and all that. She says all you got to do is work these 12 steps. You never got to feel like that again. Oh my God. I was sitting in my chair thinking to myself, please let me be an alcoholic, please. Oh my God, I want to be one so bad. Because if I'm an alcoholic, there's hope. I haven't had hope. I lost all hope at 4 years old when I walked into that kindergarten room and became conscious of my separation. She extended me hope. The end of that meeting, they did desire chips. If you have a desire to give up your way of life and try ours, come and get one. I about knocked over my chair getting a chip that night. I was in. Oh my God. I got a chip. I thought, where do I sign? Do I get a membership card? I was so excited. And I dove into Alcoholics Anonymous. Fellowship, meetings. OMG. Now, my husband divorced me in that first year. I guess disappearing for 9 months might have had something to do with that. At a year sober, I found myself on the big island of Hawaii on the Kona coast in a little village called Kailua. Followed a guy over there, but that didn't work out. And I'm walking down the street and I've got the ocean breaking on my left, the mountain going up to my right. I'm in paradise. I'm 24 years old. I'm a year sober and I want to kill myself. So if you are new or nearly new, and by the way, welcome Stephen and Amy. If you are new or nearly new and in the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, suiting up and showing up, you too would like to die. I get it. Because I had dove in, fellowship, meetings, and they are fabulous. They are the substitute for alcohol. They are 1/3 of the triangle, but they are not the solution for alcoholism. I came to that crossroad that's talked about in the big book. I could not imagine another day without a drink, but I could not imagine picking it up again. So I went to one more meeting one more time, and I asked a woman by the name of Cherie J. She lives in Sacramento, California now. She just celebrated 56 years of sobriety this summer. I asked her to be my sponsor, and she said, I'll sponsor you, little lady, but you're going to work some steps. And my life began to change because I'm a good student. I listen. I do what you tell me to do. I want her to like me. She's amazing. She talks to her God at a nude beach, and she's a big woman. I mean, my God. That's a level of spirituality I wanted. So she would ask me to do things, so I had to do them. I didn't work those steps because I wanted to. Ew, have you read them? Like I did not want to, but she kept giving me assignments, and I had to do the stupid assignment or she wouldn't like me. So if you're not excited about the steps, but you love your sponsor, you're in the right place. It's okay. And what happened for me is I'm a good student. And I wanted to become a real girl, you see, because I didn't exist. I was Pinocchio. I have always emulated the people in a room so that I could survive. I never fit in. I learned that my first day of kindergarten. Pick out the most successful person in the room. Walk like they walk, talk like they talk, do what they do. That's how you get along in a world you don't fit in. And when you run with dangerous people, it saves your life. Trust me. I didn't exist. I didn't need to find me. I needed to create me. There was no Holly. I was made of wood. And I was not lovable. I was not kind. I was not nice. I didn't exist. So I came into Alcoholics Anonymous to become a real girl. And I listened. I was a good student. I did what Cherie told me to do. I suited up and I showed up and it worked. 7 years sober, I moved to Jacksonville, Florida for a wedding. Mine! Ah! I married a button-up sweater guy. Who knew? Not one of us. My mom and the architect, they're still married, by the way. Of course, her being sober helps with all that. Well, they moved here, and so they introduced me to a co-worker of my stepdad's. Button-up sweater. He owned button-up sweaters. I never met a man in my life owned a button-up sweater. And if you are across the pond, that's a cardigan. Just saying. I never met a man who wore cardigans. So he's not one of us. He's a citizen. He was a real boy. And he married me. He had a daughter. I had a daughter. That's 2. We decided to have children together. So we had 2 baby boys. That's 4. I became Catholic because why not? He's Catholic. I started teaching CCD at the Catholic Church. And if you're a Baptist, that's Sunday school. Just saying. I had arrived. I had achieved exactly what Alcoholics Anonymous was supposed to achieve for me. I was a good wife and a good mother and a good employee. I was managing a company. That's my degree. I was a good Sunday school teacher and a good member of PTA. I had laurels, lots of laurels. I had a laurel husband and 4 little laurel children and a laurel job and a laurel position in the community. And I needed to take care of those laurels. Yes, I did, because that's how I'm okay. I have to be good at all those jobs. I wore a lot of hats, and I got so busy taking care of my laurels that I wasn't taking care of my program. 13 and a half years sober, I picked up a drink. It was an accident, really. I hadn't been to a meeting in 2 years, and more importantly, way more importantly, I had not lived in steps 10, 11, or 12 in that 2-year period of time. No inventory work, did nothing to seek and improve my conscious contact with my creator, and I had not spoken to another alcoholic woman. And we were moving. Life was amazing. House was empty, no one around. I'm cleaning, and I'm thirsty. My thermos was empty. So I walked to the refrigerator to see if anything was left, and the only thing in there was a 6-pack of beer. So I took the lid off the thermos. I reached in and took out a beer, popped the top, poured a little bit of beer in that top, threw the rest away, drank it, walked out of the door, and gave it no thought at all. None. It was not alcohol. It was liquid. I was thirsty, cunning, baffling, powerful. Alcohol got into my body without my permission. I always believed if I was ever faced with a drink, I would have a moment of consideration, right? If you think about a drink, call your sponsor. If you think about a drink, hit your knees. If you think about a drink, open your big book. If you think about a drink, call another alcoholic. All of these solutions if you think about a drink. But it also says there comes a time when the only defense you have is your spiritual program. That's not exactly how it says it. And there came a time I was thirsty. Never saw it. Never saw it. I just drank it, gave it no thought. 6 months later, I was out to dinner with my husband, and I remembered that beer. And I looked at my husband and I said, you know, honey, when we were moving, I drank some beer. So I guess I blew the whole chip thing, but obviously it's not a problem. Would you mind if I order a glass of wine? Poor button-up sweater. He had no idea. You know, I told him I tried marijuana once and I didn't like it. And that is all I told him. You know, I was taught early in AA, you don't have to do your 5th step with the menu date. So I didn't. I didn't tell him anything. I mean, he knew I was in AA when he met me, and he just thought it was so commendable that I stopped drinking so young. Oh, God. So poor button-up sweater. So I ordered a glass of wine that night. And the only reason I am your speaker today is that night in that restaurant, when I ordered that glass of wine at home, was a babysitter with my 2 boys. My girls were already grown and gone. And my youngest son was an infant, and I was breastfeeding. Remember that thesis I did in 1978? Yeah, well, I do. And I remember the rules. And I not only remember the rules, I know physiologically why they are in place. And so I followed them. And basically what that means is I had 2 servings of alcohol a day. And it was hell. It was horrifying. It was terrible. I was obsessed all day long, all day long, all day long, all day long. I saved my drinks until my husband came home from work for cocktail hour. I had 2 servings, not 2 drinks, 2 servings of alcohol. And then we went to bed, and I did it all again the next day. It was a living hell. I was terrified every single moment. And then I weaned my son. And on the day I weaned my son, I had a spiritual experience. My husband walked in the door, and I'm not going to breastfeed this day. So I started to pour the drinks, and it hit me. I had no reason to stop. And I was filled with a terror like nothing I have ever experienced before or after. And I looked at Michael and I said, oh my God, what have I been doing? Throw it away, get it out of here, get the alcohol out of the house. Oh my God, I have to go to a meeting. And I ran out the front door and I ran to the church where I know there's a meeting. Literally, I didn't take a car. I just ran. I was so scared. And I sat on the steps of the church that day waiting for the meeting to start. And as I waited for them to open the doors, I did steps 1, 2, and 3 immediately, just like that. And I walked in and I got the chip I hold today, and that was September 28, 1996. But what I did that night that I had never done before, that I did not do on February 3rd, 1981, is on September 28, 1996, I conceded to my innermost self that I'm an alcoholic, which is very different from February 3rd, 1981, admitting I'm an alcoholic. An admission was easy. A concession, not so much. But I conceded, I've got this thing and I need to treat this thing every single day, because if I don't, it will treat me. It can, in fact, put alcohol into my body without my permission. I don't know that because I read it. I know that because it is my experience. And that's scary. So I'm scared into submission, right? That doesn't sound like fun. I'm thrown into a program where I have to take a look at myself. I have to strip away and see my selfishness and see my fears. I have to dedicate my life to loving others. That sounds like, ugh. That doesn't sound like fun, but it is magic. I never in a million years would have believed that in order to save my life, I have to reach out and receive joy beyond my wildest dreams. I am here to tell you that the disease of alcoholism is the best gift I could have ever been given, because I'm awake to the fact that love is the greatest thing in the world. It is absolutely magic, and it can walk me through absolutely anything with grace and dignity. Glenn, thank you so very much for having me today. I really, really appreciate spending this time with you guys. Thank you.